Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and welcome back to Exoborne. If you've been out of the loop, Exoborne is an upcoming tactical extraction shooter from developer Sharkmob, and to spice up the genre, it is bringing things like incredibly high mobility, deeply gameplay affecting forces of nature, and much more. Now, I personally have had a long history with this game. I was speculating as far back as 2021 about what Sharkmob might be working on due to their previous involvement in the Division franchise. Then in 2023, I got to collaborate with the team for the reveal of Exoborne at the Game Awards. Even just earlier this year, I was checking out their first wide-scale non-NDA'd playtest. I'll have links to both of those videos down in the description in case you want to check them out. But the point is, I've seen Exoborne evolve a lot over time, and so when the dev team reached out and asked if I was interested in participating in their newest playtest and reporting some of my findings on the latest major changes, my answer was, of course, hell yes. And let me tell you, a lot has improved for this current iteration of the game. Some highlight features include a streamlined UI and faster looting process. There's been a complete overhaul to exo rigs and the game's core power progression, and all of that has come directly from community feedback. So we're going to dive into it all, and by the end of the video, also take a peek at what some of the game's most powerful items have to offer in gameplay, something that, for me, was a first in this test. So, for any interested, you can wishlist Exoborne on Steam right now, as well as sign up for the upcoming playtest running from September 16th through October 7th. Links to find out all about it can be found down in the description and pinned comment. As we jump in, thank you very much to Exoborne for sponsoring this video, and without further ado, let's go. A quick disclaimer that if you're finding the graphical fidelity of the gameplay footage in the video to look a bit low, I am indeed running the game on lower end settings. Yes, I know I'm overdue for a PC upgrade, just wanted to clear that up. Alright, so at a broad level, even if you haven't played or heard of Exoborne before, you're likely going to be at least somewhat familiar with its basic mechanics. Like many other extraction shooters, Exoborne offers largely loot-based progression. You enter into a world, you try and survive PvE and PvP encounters, and you then extract with the best stuff you can find, while also completing things like in-game contracts and more. But again, you've likely seen much of that before. That's the kind of stuff that I really went into in my prior Exoborne videos. Something that I really wanted to take the time to highlight here is instead a major rework and overhaul that has gone into the game since their last major playtest, and that is the new Exo Rig loadout and progression screen. So this is accessible right from your main menu, and upon going in, you will see that there are now dedicated slots for each of the Exo Rig archetypes, and those just come with different unique abilities and traits. However, once you select the one that you want, you will see that each of these have an individual progression path with several unlockable mod slots. And these mods do a variety of things. Some of them will augment and enhance those unique abilities that each rig offers, whereas others will let you customize your playstyle beyond the rig itself, with universal options like the grapple, function and speed, your revive times, etc. So this was one of my biggest surprises and features I ended up enjoying most from this test. The previous iteration of Exo Rig customization didn't stand out to me all that much. It certainly wasn't as flashy, but this new version offers you a way to directly fine-tune your playstyle, easily swap between loadouts, and have long-term progression to chase beyond the simple looting and extraction loop. I also think it's really cool that, in the team's words, this overhaul came directly from community feedback and the prior playtests. So, with this new system in place, I dove into some matches to try it out, see what the build variety was looking like, but this test offered me one other huge opportunity, aside from just showing you the classic early hour extraction shooter flow, which tends to swing between some big scores as well as some devastating losses. And what I mean is, I got a true chance to check out Exoborne's Endgame, at least what an endgame character and loadout would look like at pretty much the very top end. Now that is not something that is always available nor achievable within these short testing periods. However, a little later on into the test's duration, I logged in to find that my account had been granted a complete endgame kit. As you can see, that included legendary weapons, top-of-the-line mods, the best armor, gadgets, abilities, and more. My Exo Rig progression had also been boosted, allowing me to try out pretty much all of the upgrades and augmentations on there. So you can imagine my initial surprise upon logging in and seeing this, but once it settled in, I was ready to go all out. You know, normally in extraction shooters, there's a consideration of how much stuff do you want to take in and risk on a run, because of course, if you die, that means you lose it all. However, these items and my progression was going to get wiped in 48 hours once the test concluded anyway, so run after run, I went in fully kitted, success or not, and what I wanted to do was was report some of my findings and experience because again, this is not something that you get to try out all that often. So some of the immediate things that I noticed was just how much more capable my character was. For one, the movement, which is already great in this game. They have a really nice system set up, but the enhanced Exorig mods took my agility to a whole new level. Another category was artillery. I of course had more powerful weapons, even stronger assault abilities like raining in rockets from the sky, throwing like a lightning-infused javelin. It was wild. Having all of this high-powered gear also granted me access to some of the more endgame catered maps, which your eligibility for is based on your loadout value, which I think is a pretty cool concept. For one, you've got Agnesville, a more moderate challenge with more tightly packed activities and action, and then there's the Sinkhole, labeled at Nightmare difficulty, and this transforms the landscape radically. I tried that Sinkhole map once, and it played out the extraction shooter fantasy pretty much to a T. I began by stealthily exploring, trying to avoid NPC and player detection. I then came across this bunker, which looked interesting. I decided to check it out, where I immediately found a player within. We then had a very tech-fueled battle with pulsing and healing. After a long back and forth, I was lucky enough to get the upper hand and take them down. Upon looting them, I found an item that was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's how I knew that I was at the very top of this risk-reward scale. I decided not to extract right away, which was definitely my biggest mistake, but I kept sneaking around. I scoped out a nearby battle, but unfortunately, I got a bit too close. I ended up getting ambushed and very quickly eliminated. But beyond that one specific example, which I found to be ironic, I did a good amount of feeling out what the endgame activity options are. One of those is acquiring artifacts. Now this is a system that is present on all maps, but it involves a multi-stage unlock process where you interact with a terminal, you deal with defending AI, you shut down these kind of dampeners that spawn in and hinder your progress. But if you're successful in acquiring the artifact and you're able to extract it, it is definitely worth your time. You use keys back at the base to open them up, and you end up getting a variety of solid rewards depending on what rarity the artifact was. Of course, however, the other big component to the endgame and Exoborne and extraction shooters in general is PvP. And what this playtest taught me is that the more geared that you and your opponents are, the more dramatic these battles are going to be. Again, super high-powered weapons, fast movement, big explosions. So I had a lot of pretty fun battles. PvP is one of the biggest draws for me in these types of games, so I was definitely seeking it out. However, there was one fight in particular that I actually wanted to show all of you a little bit deeper. Some of the reasons being there was voice chat involved alerting us that there were players nearby. There was a full 3-on-3 team fight, some crazy mobility and flying. There was a very back and forth momentum to what was happening. I don't want to spoil the entire thing, so just take a look at some of these clips.
We need to get at least one PvP damage or kill. Here, flares. Flares. Right here.
So, after all that, I finally did it. I overcame the 2v1, I wiped the other squad, went to revive my fallen teammate, only to get ambushed by another squad and be eliminated. Now, in fairness, this is frustrating. I could see people raging from that experience. But as I mentioned, I thought this whole interaction just exemplified extraction shooters to a T. All of those randomly timed and dynamic fights, ability usage, comebacks, triumphs, then that random chance of downturn. I really thrive on that unpredictability, and I found that to be plentifully available in Exoborne's Endgame. Well, folks, that is all I've got for this one. I hope you enjoyed this more in-depth look at Exoborne, some of the latest changes, some more in-game tailored gameplay. As I mentioned earlier, it's been very cool to see this game progress over time, especially with these latest changes to stuff like the Exo rigs. Once again, I wanted to thank Exoborne for sponsoring this video, and if you liked what you saw in the video and you want to find out more, or you want to have a chance to play the game for yourself, then check out those links down in the description or pinned comment to sign up for the upcoming September playtest. That's going to do it for me though. Thank you all so much for watching. RogueGold out.